Okay, so somebody asked me if it's better to be a polar guide and then a researcher, or a researcher and then a polar guide. I can only tell you how I did it, and everybody gets into this industry, into research or polar guiding, in a completely different way. But I started off as a scientist. Fast forward to where I'm at now in life. I am doing a PhD at Scripps Institution of Oceanography, and I specifically wanted to work in Antarctica, and I specifically wanted to be a scientist. But I also really love outreach and the broader impacts of science. And as a polar oceanographer, it's a really unique opportunity to be in Antarctica, be in the field, and do my research and lecture and talk to the travelers that are down here. So over the last 4 years, I have become a polar guide. I think anything you can do as a scientist that gets you out in the elements, gets you interacting with people, gets you practice at science communication, make you a better scientist. Because scientists have to share the story, share their work, because if you do all this work and nobody knows about it, then how is that science contributing to the broader knowledge base of how these ecosystems work? So for me, becoming a polar guide and as a scientist, I feel helps make me a better scientist, and vice versa. As a polar guide, you're doing a lot of interpretation when you're out in the field and you're bringing people to these places and you're talking to them about how this ecosystem forms, and so the two kind of feed into each other. So I wouldn't say being a polar guide makes you a better scientist if you've never had training as a scientist. And so if you were to be a polar guide and then become a scientist, you would already have a lot of context because you had been working down here. You know how these ecosystems work from personal observation. And so in that sense, that's what, polar guides are seeing these places and have an incredibly intimate understanding with how the ecosystems work. So in that sense, being a polar guide could help you become a better scientist because you have those skills of observation and storytelling. So I hope that answers the question. There's no one answer. It's either or, and they both feed on each other, and they both enhance and help in either career you choose to go into.